It's time for Herd Mentality, the weekly episode where you control the discussion today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of the Herd Mentality Substack, co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, co-host of the NFL First Read Podcast, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate y'all being here very, very much. I'd also like to invite you to subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. Well, folks, welcome in. Herd Mentality, you know the drill. I take your questions, comments, concerns, whatever you have. We talk about it here on this episode. And the first few questions are going to be Chiefs related. And then there's a lot of questions, a lot of lingering questions coming out of that Ravens game about Amari Cooper and if the team got conservative, all kinds of stuff. So I'll try to give you my best insights on all of that here today. We'll start with this one from Andrew, who says, what lessons and insights can we take from our in-season victory against the Chiefs this year? Does the return of a few of their key offensive pieces from injury who weren't playing against us in season change our defensive game plan? It's a good question. And so you look back at that win, the Bills beat them 30-21. And the things that I recollect from that game defensively were the five-man pressures that the Bills were able to deploy against the Kansas City Chiefs. I thought the Bills' defensive line was very good in that game, and their pressure schemes were very good. And the five-man pressures worked a ton, where not only do you get a cage rush element, but you get a spy element, and you get kind of an aggressive plan to get after Mahomes, but keep him in the pocket. And I thought the Bills did a very good job of mitigating the off-script creativity that comes with Patrick Mahomes. The Bills played a lot of man coverage, 30% man coverage, and maybe that's where things get a little bit more tricky in this game with them now having Hollywood Brown as part of the mix. Certainly adds an explosive element to their offense. The Bills also, in certain situations, really broke out their odd mirror look, where they have basically a dime defense, but with 3 defensive linemen and 2 linebackers, 6 defensive backs. And it's like an aggressive spy mirror player layered on top of that. I thought mixing that up with your 5-man pressures was really strong. I thought that created some confusion and led to Patrick Mahomes really holding onto the ball for a long time, but also not really being able to get outside of structure. You know, Mahomes' average time to throw was crazy high in that game. And then Terrell Bernard, I thought, did a very good job on Travis Kelce, who, of course, as has become tradition, has really come alive here later in the year. So we'll see what the Bills' plan is for Kelce. But then offensively, the Bills really leaned into being efficient, and they took their chances when necessary. A lot of quick passes, a lot of yards after catch, but also they had some matchups that they liked. Nas Johnson at corner against Amari Cooper, some big plays down the field. Of course, now Jalen Watson's back for them at corner, so that's a bit of a different situation. And the Bills' offense just had all the answers for Kansas City's blitz, right? That's kind of their hallmark, is their ability to heat up quarterbacks and force them into bad throws. And the Bills had all the right answers. Ty Johnson was terrific as a pass blocker. And then the Bills just kind of knew where the space was going to be, anticipated a lot of those looks and where there was going to be opportunities to beat it, and had the right answers. Now, Kansas City's had some lineup changes. We mentioned Jalen Watson back at corner. That's a huge upgrade for them at corner. At offensive tackle, they brought in DJ Humphries last week against Houston. They put Joe Thuney, their left guard, out at left tackle and brought in Mike Caliendo, who's been a reserve player for them to play guard. I'm not sure if they're going to continue with that plan or not for this week, but their tackle situation has been an issue, and they're at least trying some different things. And then, of course, the return of at wide receiver Hollywood Brown plus Isaiah Pacheco will be available. So certainly a different looking Kansas City team in a lot of different ways. But what it really comes down to is this. The Bills have had the Chiefs' number and Patrick Mahomes' number during the regular season. They've done terrific. Patrick Mahomes against the Bills in the regular season for his career, 1-4, 64.8 completion percentage, 260 passing yards per game, 10 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, passer rating of 85.9. In the postseason, it's just a different game. Mahomes is 3-0 against the Bills in the postseason, 75.2% completion percentage, 306 passing yards per game, 8 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and a passer rating of 126.6. In those 3 games, Patrick Mahomes did not register a single turnover-worthy play. So whatever their regular season script is, the Bills have to learn what's been different from then to the postseason games that's allowed Patrick Mahomes to just be that much better. I mean, the splits are crazy different. So you got to ask yourself some hard questions about how to build upon your regular season success in the postseason, and let's hope the Bills have those answers on Sunday night. Jeff says, what did the Chiefs tape tell you from their last game against Houston, particularly how well their defense played? Not sure if you got a chance to watch, but they played similar to us, nothing crazy, but just no mistakes on offense. Yeah, I mean, that's very much true. I mean, the Chiefs won a game against Houston in a lot of ways, similar to how the Bills won a game against Baltimore. And Chiefs defensively kind of did what they did, right? They're 40% blitz rate. They blitz a ton. And you have a really bad combination for Houston where C.J. Stroud is really not good at handling pressure or navigating the pocket. They struggle in pass protection, and you have a blitz-aggressive defense. It's a very terrible recipe for Houston. And so Houston killed the rookie right tackle, Blake Fisher. I mean, killed him. And then the Texans were pretty clueless on how to involve their backs and tight ends into their protection schemes. I mean, you've got George Karlaftis going one-on-one against a tight end and Dalton Schultz, and that's not a fair fight for Dalton Schultz. And then C.J. Stroud, like I said, slow processor, doesn't navigate pressure well, and he struggles to speed up his process. It's a nightmare combination for Houston. And so Kansas City just absolutely exploited that. And as they did that and got Houston in negative plays and behind the sticks and were able to, really tighten the screws in the red zone, Kansas City didn't have to do much offensively. Kansas City won that game. Was it 23-14? And they had 212 yards of offense, 4.2 yards per play. They go 4 of 11 on third downs, 2 of 5 in the red zone. That's not necessarily winning offense, but when you can complement a strong defensive effort with, hey, we're just not going to beat ourselves while you just sit there and beat yourself, that's a winning recipe a lot of times, especially in the postseason. It's a very similar script. So nobody's coming out of that Houston game saying, oh my goodness, Patrick Mahomes and this offense is lighting it up, just like nobody said that about Buffalo's offense against Baltimore. But similar scripts in that, hey, do what you had to do offensively, and these teams will beat themselves. And that's been the story for Houston, and that's been the story for Baltimore in their playoff elimination games. And so the more mature team settled in and invited the other team to beat themselves, and they obliged. Paul says, wondering how many players on this Bills roster have played in or won a Super Bowl. I know Vaughn has. Seems like that kind of experience will be important this weekend and then hopefully in the Super Bowl. So I went through it, and my apologies if I missed somebody. I don't think I did. I found 5 players on this roster right now that have won the Super Bowl or played in the Super Bowl. Actually, all 5 of these are Super Bowl champions. So you mentioned Von Miller, 2-time Super Bowl champion, 1 with the Broncos, 1 with the Rams. Mac Hollins, a Super Bowl champion, 2017 Eagles. You also have David Edwards, Super Bowl champion with the Rams in 2021. Taylor Rapp, Super Bowl champion 2021 with the Rams. And then Rasul Douglas with the Eagles in 2017. He's also a Super Bowl champion. So Mac Hollins, David Edwards, Von Miller, Taylor Rapp, Rasul Douglas are your players on this roster with Super Bowl experience. All right, coming up next, we'll get into some of those lingering questions about this Bills win over the Ravens that has some people feeling all kinds of way. Not really sure what's up with it, but we'll get into it here next. Be sure to stick with us. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets. If you win your first bet, that's $300 to keep the action going. The FanDuel app is easy to navigate, and the variety of bets keeps every game exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around for your winnings. Whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking to add some extra excitement to the playoffs, FanDuel has you covered. If you want to get in on this Bills game, right now the Chiefs are favorites, 1.5-point favorites. The over-under set at 47.5. So you can see that expectation of a 24-20 type game is what Vegas is telling you over at FanDuel. So just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, folks, let's get into some of these lingering questions from this Ravens game. David says, on Josh Allen's 2nd and 7 run in the fourth quarter, I thought he was much closer to the 1 than the 2. Should McDermott have used the challenge? Do the refs ever move the ball closer on challenges? So obviously with the benefit of having been able to study the tape, no, I thought the spot was actually perfect. In fact, I don't even think he got to the 2. I think he was just a tick shy of the 2, and that's exactly where the ball was spotted. I thought it was extremely correct. I've seen a few people talking about this, but my eyes tell me that spot was perfect. And I would say that generally, though, changing spots can be tricky. There tends to be some reluctance to doing so. I think it can be difficult based on camera angles to really decide on moving the ball when you're talking, maybe inches or even a few feet. But I thought the referees absolutely got that correct, and not challenging was the right decision. Tim says last night the Bills fell back into the issues they had last year and even a bit earlier this year when they come out with a lead in the second half and can't put the team away on offense. What did they do last night that slowed them down? I know Baltimore adjusted and played better on D, but did our play calling get conservative? It was so good in the first half. Did we not execute? We can't coast in the second half next week. Yeah, I think it's incorrect to say that the Bills coasted in the second half. There were execution errors on 2 drives, right? So those first 2 drives, they came out and punted, and it wasn't like, hey, we want to come out and punt so that we can let the Baltimore Ravens get back into the game. They had execution errors, all right? That's what it comes down to. On the first drive, the second down play, the throw to Dalton Kincaid, it's a bad ball from Josh, and Dalton couldn't scoop it out. Josh has got to get the ball up. And, Kincaid should catch it, but they both deserve blame for that play. If you connect there, that's a nice play. That's a nice drive starter. Well, you can't connect, you get 3rd and long. Hard to convert 3rd and longs, especially when they start to really heat you up with overload pressures. So I think that's okay. There you go. They didn't turtle up or decide to get conservative. They didn't connect on a throw. Then 3rd and 5 on the next drive, the screen play to Knox that has people all up in arms. Remember, first of all, Josh Allen checked into that play, and it was a good look. I completely understand why he checked into it. They had been sending overload pressures on 3rd downs. It was a good look. Josh threw it out there to Dawson Knox. I thought Dawson Knox took a poor track with the ball. He needed to go outside, and then nobody blocked Kyle Van Noy. So, that's what it comes down to. You connect those plays, you move the sticks. Then you get a new set of downs for Josh Allen. It's not this idea that the Bills said, you know what, boy, we just got to get out of this game and invite Baltimore to come back in, and we don't want to win by a lot. No, you got to make the plays. They didn't make the plays. It's that simple. But the Bills did have the right formula. They came out, got their lead, invited Baltimore to beat themselves like they do every time they get eliminated from the postseason. They get a 21-10 lead. They try to build on it. They can't. They rush the ball extremely well in the first half. They try to replicate it in the second half. Got a little bit muddy. They go to some efficient passes. They really couldn't break a tackle, right? That's some chances in the flats to break a tackle, but it was a situation where you just try to compress the game and be efficient, and it worked, just like it worked for Kansas City. It's games are lost more than they are won, and that was true for this game. And here's a number that I don't think the world's ready to hear, but Josh Allen threw deep, 20 yards or more down the field on 13.6% of his dropbacks. That's the second highest rate of any quarterback in the divisional round. Of the 8 starters, the second highest rate of deep throws. He only threw the ball 22 times. His season average on deep throws is 14.1%. It was right there. And it just became obvious that it wasn't necessary to force any throws or make a mistake, right? It was play clean ball. You have the lead. Obviously, try to be efficient, but had a couple of execution errors that took away from opportunities to extend drives. And yeah, that invited Baltimore to come back in, but it wasn't like, hey, let's get conservative and allow Baltimore to come in. I mean, they got to make the plays when they're there to be made. It was a winning formula. It worked. The Bills won the game. They're playing for the AFC Championship game, folks. Next one here comes from Ben. Ben says the Ravens were able to move the ball seemingly at will, but they always had a long field ahead. This played into the defense's plan of more plays equals more opportunities for mistakes. I think Josh Allen deserves a lot of credit for not ever putting the defense in a bad position in this game. It probably was the difference between a win or a loss, and I don't know how much he's going to get credit for that since his stats weren't eye-popping. It's a great comment here from Ben. And that was the main theme that I wanted you to get from the All-22 review, was that Josh Allen's maturity shined. I think that's even what I titled the podcast. It was what I led with in the opening segment. That was my big point that I wanted to communicate. No, you're not going to be enamored with 16 of 22 for whatever, 100 and something yards passing, no passing touchdowns. But if that wasn't emblematic of exactly what we have wanted to see from Josh Allen, to play clean ball and do the smart right thing with the football, he did it. He embraced that game script. And I don't know if Josh Allen would do that in years past, but his maturity was terrific. Played clean ball, never had to put the cape on. And yeah, Baltimore never punted in the game. They either scored or they turned the ball over on their drives. The matchup problems that motivated the Bills, that created all these narratives, those were real. Those were very real. There's a reason that the Bills were underdogs at home with Josh Allen as their quarterback. It's a tough matchup for Buffalo. But Josh Allen embraced the exact style of game necessary to win it. And I look at some of the overload pressures there when the Bills had the lead, and they got free runners at Josh Allen. And I've watched Josh Allen in the past. Free runner, okay, baby, let's go. I'm going to spin around. I'm going to make that dude miss. No, you know what Josh Allen did? He quickly identifies the free runner and just tries to mitigate the loss and get into the line of scrimmage. No reason for a negative play. And so we've got to detach ourselves from any level of disappointment that Josh Allen's passing stats weren't as good as we wanted them to be. They won the game and did exactly what was necessary to get the win. Go Bills, man. They won the game. They're one win away from the AFC Championship game. And I love that this team can embrace different scripts. It doesn't always have to go a certain way. Every win doesn't have to look the same. That is the mark of a great team. We've seen plenty of games where Josh Allen goes out there and it's 3, 4, 5 touchdowns. AFC Offensive Player of the Week. Yeah, that's the NFL MVP. But you know what? There's also these other times where it's like, hey, just do what you got to do. San Francisco game. This game, this recent win over Baltimore. Sometimes that's the script that's necessary. And I love that this team can embrace it, and that in order to win a game, it doesn't have to go a certain way every single time. All right, coming up next, Amari Cooper. 2 questions on Amari Cooper, some play calling stuff, and then want to shout out Bills Mafia for what's going on with this Mark Andrews thing. Folks, be sure to stick with us. Therapy is a game changer and can help manage stress, improve sleep, and communicate more effectively. But finding the right therapist and fitting sessions into a busy schedule can be a challenge. That's where Talkspace comes in. Talkspace, the leading virtual therapy provider, makes getting the help you need easy, accessible, and affordable. With Talkspace, signing up is simple. You can match with a licensed therapist who fits your needs, usually within 48 hours, and it's convenient. You can have sessions from the comfort of your home and even message your therapist between appointments. Plus, Talkspace is covered by many insurance plans, and for the most insured members, there's a $0 copay. It's never been easier to prioritize your mental health. As a listener of this podcast, you'll get $80 off your first month with Talkspace when you go to Talkspace.com/LockedOn. Locked On NFL, and enter promo code SPACE80 to match with a licensed therapist today. Go to TalkSpace.com/LockedOnNFL and enter promo code SPACE80 to get $80 off your first month and show your support for the show. That's TalkSpace.com/LockedOnNFL, promo code SPACE80. All right, folks, let's get into these Amari Cooper questions. Daniel says, what's up with Amari Cooper? Dude was making some plays, and now it's not even targeted anymore. I thought he was a priority re-signing for the offseason. I don't know anymore. Yeah, so Amari's been quiet. There's no question. I think he's been targeted 4 times in the postseason, has 2 catches for like 8 yards, something like that. And I think maybe the silver lining is that you don't feel a whole lot of burden to re-sign him, or if you do, there's an understanding of, hey, you're not here to have 80, 100, 120 targets. You're here to be a part of what we have going on, and if that works for you, cool. This is the dollar amount that makes sense, right? We're not paying you for the production that you've had to this point in your career. I mean, you're on the other side of 30. You're going to be 31 next year. This is what makes sense for a deal here. If you want, $15, $20 million a year and to go somewhere where you can get 100 targets, well, go do it. But this is what we have for you. Do you like this, right? I think that's kind of how those negotiations go. But again, the Bills passed the ball 22 times. 1 target for Amari Cooper. Shakir had 7 targets. James Cook had 3. Then you had 7 other guys with 1 or 2 targets, right? So the reality here is that we just have to stop caring about volume stats. This offense is literally built with 0 regard for volume stats. They don't care about who gets catches, yards, and targets. It's do the smart, right thing with the football. And it's got them to this point where this is literally the most efficient offense, one of the most efficient offenses in the history of the NFL. Josh Allen has protected the ball and taken care of the football better than any quarterback in the history of the NFL when it comes to percentage of plays that are an interception or a sack, right? Like, this is unbelievable what he's been able to do. It's a huge part of this winning recipe, helping them overcome some of the challenges that they do have on defense. And so I think Amari Cooper, one of the most important things that he does is he allows Mac Hollins to not have to be an outside receiver, and you could tap into his versatility. And Mac Hollins is playing a ton of inline tight end for this team right now. He's an insert blocker. He's playing attached to the formation a ton. Well, Amari Cooper is a guy that can play on the perimeter that frees that up. And I know that doesn't help anybody when it comes to looking at a box score or, trying to help your prop bets or your fantasy football team, but that's not a concern of this football team. They're trying to build an offense that's tough to defend. And what makes this Bills offense tough to defend is that it's not about any single skill player that's not Josh Allen. He has the freedom to operate. That was the whole exciting thing. When the Bills got rid of Stephon Diggs, it was, all right, Josh, what can you do when you're not worried about funneling 10, 15 targets a game to Stephon Diggs? And I love what I see. So I just refuse to be bothered by any player and their volume stats and what it means. What's the skill set? How does it impact the offense? Okay, cool. When the Bills have matchups that they like with Amari Cooper, where they can go one-on-one down the field against Najee Johnson or against Brandon Echols, okay, cool. We like that. But it hasn't been necessary for him to be a high-volume piece of this offense. I know, look, you can reconcile, okay, a third-round pick for this. I mean, the Bills are in the AFC Championship game. They're 1 win away from the Super Bowl. I can't get myself to be bothered by this. I really just can't. It's just not how this offense is built. He's helped this football team. And it's not measurable easily with catches and yards. But when you think about the scheme and what this team wants to be and the multiplicity with the personnel groupings and the challenges that they present to a defense, because defenses have been built for the last 20 years to say, we want to take away the thing that you do best. Okay. The Bills say, okay, sure. Go ahead. Whatever you think it is, try to take that away. Doesn't matter. And that's why there's not going to be any players that are just lighting up the scoreboard in terms of box score. And quite honestly, great. I'm completely over being excited about Stephon Diggs potentially leading the NFL in receiving or breaking the record for receiving touchdowns in a season. I like what this offense looks like. It's unlocked the best version of Josh Allen that we've ever seen. Super Grover says, in your Substack takeaway post from the Ravens game, you mentioned that Amari Cooper should have had a larger impact against the Ravens. That being said, was there anything from the All-22 tape to shed more light into Cooper's performance or impact? Well, yeah. So, of course, going into the game, I wrote about, hey, this is a great opportunity for Cooper and Coleman to be productive. And I even predicted that they combined for 100 receiving yards, and then they combined for 5. All right. So, obviously, the Ravens were also aware that that was a matchup problem. And so they wound up playing, especially early in the game, a decent amount of Tampa 2. What is Tampa 2? It's 2 high safeties. What do? They play over top of the receivers. He pretty much had high-low coverage on the outside receivers for a large amount of this game. And they played a lot of cover 3. Again, leveraged the idea, stay leveraged over top of these receivers. And the Bills' vertical passing offense has really come along lately. And Baltimore made a choice, right? They said, you're not going to have those explosive plays against us. So against the Jets and Broncos, the last 2 games where the Bills actually tried to play offense, who cares about the Patriots game? Josh Allen was 6 of 9 for 183 yards with 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and a passer of 149.3 on deep throws. Baltimore was aware. And so they made a choice saying, okay, we might lose, but it's not going to be because Josh Allen's ripping the ball down the field. And you know what Josh Allen did? He did exactly what you dream of him doing. He didn't force the ball. He said, I'll take the smart throw. I'll take the profits. I'll keep this offense on schedule. I'm not going to get behind the sticks. I'm not going to force anything. And we're going to win a football game. He played clean ball and embraced the style of game necessary to win. So, yeah, going in, I don't think I was wrong in that analysis. And I think Baltimore was exactly thinking what I was thinking and said, we can't let that happen. And they made a choice. And even watching Hard Knocks last night, of course, I wanted to watch the Baltimore Tears. Man, I was so much fun. I made popcorn. Watch those Baltimore Tears on Hard Knocks last night. And what was they talked about it. We got to plaster. We have to plaster. They didn't want that. They had a specific plan. Josh Allen said, we're going to play clean ball. You hear them saying, like, yeah, he's going to force one. Like, no, he doesn't anymore. Salsa Knuckles says, from the mid-third quarter to the fourth quarter, when Josh passed, he spread the ball around like crazy. He got to target Cooper, Knox, Samuel, Coleman, Hollins, and Johnson. It almost seemed deliberate. The rest of the game heavily featured Shakir and Cook. Were they just trying to mix it up because the offense had kind of stalled, or is it possible they were actually trying to get their guys some touches? I don't really think that there's an intentionality to say, hey, we need to get these guys the ball. I think the Bills came out and Shakir and over the middle of the field when they were playing a lot of Tampa 2 made a lot of sense. Then they started to adjust. They played more cover 3, middle of the field closed. They started to pressure a little bit more. That requires more Ty Johnson on the field, right? And so I think it kind of naturally changed where the ball is going to go. There's always going to be a players, not plays element to play calling. Joe Brady has even said that. But I think the intent was to be efficient, compress the game, and based on the game script to take care of the football and mitigate negative plays. So a lot of that was quick game, get the ball out of Josh's hands. And I think what was missing is nobody really broke a tackle or had a big explosive play after the catch, even though there was plenty of opportunities to do that. So, the necessity for risk wasn't there. The appetite for risk wasn't there, and they compressed the game and got out of there with the win. Devin says, is there any chance that in the next Herd Mentality episode, you can talk about what Bills Mafia did for Mark Andrews after the game? I heard he received death threats after the dropped 2-point conversion. After that came out, the Bills Mafia donated to charity. I thought with your platform, it might help with the kindness and humble side of football. Yeah, so this is a sad situation for Mark Andrews. Obviously, he had a disaster game. The fumble, the drop 2-point conversion. He had a drop earlier in the game, and he's a great player. I mean, he's a captain for that team. He's been such a good player for a long time. And so obviously for them, it's very sad. And the unfortunate reality is that people are really, really cruel, and don't realize that it's at the end of the day, it is just a game, and that nobody deserves to have their life threatened or anything threatened based on what they did or didn't do in a football game. And so that's disappointing from Ravens fans, but you just kind of see this happen a lot for athletes. It's very, very unfortunate. And as human beings, we got to be better. Credit to Bills Mafia for rallying in typical Bills Mafia fashion. Mark Andrews was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes as a child. And so he has worked for, he's been an ambassador for and supports an organization called Breakthrough T1D, which is a juvenile diabetes research and advocacy organization. And so Nicholas Howard, a Bills fan, organized a campaign to donate to this. And as of the recording of this podcast, $52,000 has been raised for the organization. And so I'll put a link in today's show notes. If you'd like to get in on that, you go right to the show notes and you can click on it and they'll go right to the GoFundMe that is raising this money so you can help. But just another part of what makes it a point of pride to be a Bills fan. You know, I live in North Carolina and, you know, I travel a little bit. You know, we go to the beach or the mountains here in North Carolina, and this is 700 miles away from Western New York, really wherever we go. I mean, you see Bills fans, and it doesn't matter where we are. There are Bills fans there. And what's interesting is me and my wife talk about this a lot. Like, Bills fans want you to know that they're Bills fans. It's not that there's not other fan bases represented. You know, I can be in Blowing Rock, North Carolina. I'll get, 3, 4, 5 Go Bills. I'll see other people wearing Bill stuff. There's other football fans there. They're just not wearing their stuff. It's a point of pride to be a Bills fan, right? Absolutely a point of pride. And we want you to know that we're a Bills fan. And of course, we're proud of our team and we love our team and the community, but I think it's stuff like this that builds that sense of pride where you know, hey, you know what? In someone's darkest hour, they're going to come in. I mean, Bills Mafia is so charitable. Looking at what they've done for other players in the past, Mark Andrews is the name right now, but Tua, Andy Dalton, Lamar Jackson, Jerry Coleman, the guy that called Buffalo the city of losers. Time and time again, they've done this. And so, yeah, we're proud of our football team. We love being Bills fan. But part of that is the pride because of what this fan base represents and how tightly knitted it is and how important it is to the fabric of the community in Western New York. But Bills Mafia is absolutely across the globe. And like I said, I can go anywhere. I'll get Go Bills. I'll see other people with Bills fans that are Bills fans. But it's not that there's not other fans there. It's just that we want you to know. We want you to know who we're part of. And it's incredible. And so shout out Bills Mafia. There's a link in today's show notes if you want to get in on the campaign here to donate to Breakthrough T1D. All right, folks, thanks for being here. Coming up the rest of the week, it's Chiefs. Crossover Thursday with the guys from Locked On Chiefs. Coming up next, and our full primer, final thoughts, predictions, all the stuff, folks. AFC Championship game on deck. The Bills are one win away from the Super Bowl. We'll talk about it the rest of the week. As always, I kindly ask that you share, subscribe, rate, and review. Have a great rest of your day. Go Bills! And I look forward to catching up with you again real soon.